Video games let us experience psychology firsthand. Happiness, sadness, laughter, and grief. In a movie, we might empathize with the main character's plight, but we are spectators. However, in a game, we live as the characters. I am Nathan Drake. I am Senua. I am the Doomslayer. Playing as these individuals, we get to grow as they do. So today I wanted to talk about a game that in my opinion encapsulates the pinnacle of growth and psychological acceptance, Celeste. On its surface, it's a game about a girl trying to climb a mountain. But in the wise words of Shrek,
layers! Onions have layers.
Today I wanted to analyze the psychological themes in Celeste and the game's underlying messages about mental health. I believe gaming can be educational as a medium. Celeste in particular has a lot to say about the impacts of our psychological perspectives. This breakdown is based on my very limited knowledge of psychology. Please do your own research. I'm Very. If you enjoyed this content, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll always see my latest content. Celeste is a platformer-style game that focuses on Madeline's mental health struggles. Madeline has friction in her personal life. She decides to leave and take a trip to the mountain. This place seems to pull out the best and the worst in people. She befriends a memorable cast of side characters on her journey. First we meet the Hag, a seemingly deranged old woman living at the base of the mountain. Then we meet Theo and Mr. Oshiro. Theo is a traveler who is not quite sure what to do with his life, but sets out to climb the mountain. Mr. Oshiro was once the caretaker of a pristine hotel, until one day he died. Madeline struggles and grits her way up this treacherous landscape, avoiding wind, traps, and certain death at every turn. As she starts building up her confidence, her negative internal voice starts tearing her down. Let's call her Gotheline. Madeline makes her way up the mountain, fighting Gotheline every step of the way. Her mental health gets the best of her, and she begins to have a panic attack. She falls into the darkness, on the precipice of defeat, but she tries a different approach. Instead of fighting her mental health, she embraces Gotheline wholeheartedly. Madeline begins to love herself, shortcomings and all. This love and forgiveness propelled her up the mountain, to stand at the top, a stronger person than before. Now that we've gone over the plot, let's break down the psychology in Celeste. To understand the extent of growth in this game, we need to analyze Madeline's character at different points in time. When she first interacts with Theo, she can hardly speak because she is self-conscious about what to say. She has almost no confidence in herself or her abilities. Theo talks about the determination in her eyes, but because she has low self-esteem, she doesn't believe it. Even the opening sequence gives us a good idea of her mental state. Although things look grim, her spirits lift talking to Theo, a flame of hope in the darkness that is Madeline's perspective. But this flame doesn't burn long, because Gotheline comes to stomp it out. When we first meet Gotheline, we understand this is Madeline's internal thoughts come to life. She looks like the protagonist, but more somber, red eyes, and an angry expression. Her goal is to have Madeline stop climbing the mountain, but she ignores Gotheline for the most part, pushing her feelings down instead of engaging with them. Then she runs into Mr. Oshiro. Our hero works non-stop for this deceased hotel manager, but all she gets in return is backlash. She gets pushed into a corner and snaps. It's important to note that even though Madeline went rogue, she stood up to Mr. Oshiro for a long time, which is a lot of character development for her. She might not have had the confidence to speak up without interacting with Theo, but Gotheline takes over, vitriolic and spiteful. Madeline immediately feels remorseful, but didn't have control in that moment, which can often be a symptom of depression. Someone might do something cruel or callous when they are depressed, but this doesn't mean they didn't feel guilty or wish they had acted another way in that scenario. My own experience with depression was similar to Madeline's. Sometimes I would be rude to my friends and family, but I didn't want to be, and it only made me feel worse about myself and my negative thoughts. Depression is oftentimes cyclical, and we can see this is the case with Madeline. She will feel good for a bit and then spiral down. The farther up the mountain she goes, the harder the struggle becomes. More intense and increasingly difficult terrains, similar to the difficulties we all have associated with our mental health. Fighting our darkest thoughts aren't easy. We can often get overwhelmed by emotions. Madeline has a panic attack, but Theo is there to help. He teaches her deep breathing to focus her mind, which is a technique sometimes used in cognitive behavioral therapy. But Madeline succumbs to Gotheline. She can't hold her feelings in any longer. They are breaking her down, eating away at her sanity. So she decides to show nothing but love and affection to her perceived worst parts of herself. In doing so, she gets true clarity. Gotheline was trying to protect Madeline, because she didn't want her other half feeling sad. She loves Madeline, but in her own way. When the two finally merge, things become easy. Not gameplay-wise, it gets hard as hell, but emotionally. Throughout the game, we hear loud music, terrifying sounds, and constant noise. Once we reach the top of the mountain, we hear nothing. A clear mind. No internal frictions or conflicts. Only peace. Now Madeline has a group of cherished friends and experiences that no one can strip from her. Our hero has fun with her closest friends, something that the old Madeline couldn't even dream of. The first big psychological theme in Celeste is the value of support systems. We can see how much relationships help different characters in this game. Mr. Oshiro and Madeline are perfect examples. These two end up very differently because of the people in their lives. Madeline changes remarkably throughout the narrative, with the help of Theo, Gotheline, and the Hag. These characters aided Madeline on her journey, but they also gave her different perspectives. Theo showed her how to be happy and enjoy conversing with other people. He helped her shed off some of her self-conscious tendencies. Gotheline taught her that her negative feelings are important, and that her anxiety serves a purpose. The Hag constantly gives Madeline cryptic advice, leading her in the right direction, but never explicitly telling her where to go. These characters lifted Madeline to heights she was never capable of reaching on her own. Mr. Oshiro is the exact opposite in a lot of ways. He seems very entitled and angry, not wanting the presence of another, unless it's exactly how he wants. Initially, Mr. Oshiro is a very toxic person. His lack of insight and perspective doesn't let him recognize that he's being very rude to Madeline. He even baby rages on her at one point. But even in this interaction, we can see how much one person changed his life. Madeline's kindness towards Mr. Oshiro was enough to make him want to change. When our ghostly friend decides to reunite with us at the end of the game, he is still very much the same, but with one distinct change. He is willing to try and be better. Reaching out can genuinely make a world of difference to those in need. Depression can be very lonely and dark. It can feel like we are completely isolated from others. No one understands how we truly feel. Although someone reaching out can help us out of the darkness, to offer a different approach or a new perspective, even just a hug. Bottling up emotions is ultimately unhealthy. Hiding away our feelings can have short-term benefits, such as staying calm in a tense scenario, but storing up these bad thoughts can cause us to implode. Let's take a look at Gotheline. At first she is very weak. She can only insult Madeline, but outside of that, she doesn't have significant power. The more stress that our hero experiences, the stronger her other half becomes. She feels so bottled up with emotions that she dreams of a monster attacking her. When Mr. Oshiro pushes her enough, she breaks. Gotheline takes form and now can insult others. This progression happens throughout the games, up until a breaking point. Eventually, because of the suppression of her emotions, Gotheline overpowers her. Madeline is completely subdued by her negative thoughts. This is called the rebound effect. It's this idea that pushing away one's worst feelings can make them come back, sometimes stronger than before. Once the game comes to a climax, something changes. Madeline decides to let her emotions have their place in her life too. Instead of controlling the show, she works with Gotheline. By working with her emotions and not against them, she can have mental clarity. The outcomes of emotional suppression are important though. Madeline and Oshiro both hurt others pretty severely because they decided to bottle up their emotions. The real-life outcomes affect the person harboring these thoughts as well. I love this about Celeste, because it shows us the outcomes of mental health in real time. We can see what life looks like when we love ourselves fully, compared to when we love only parts of ourselves. Gotheline looks sad and worn down, but when she and Madeline work together, they look like a completely different person. One important thing that Madeline can't understand throughout her journey is the true purpose of Gotheline. If we think about the mountain as an allegory for mental health, the top of the mountain is the pinnacle, having complete love for oneself. The middle of the mountain is the biggest struggle a person faces, and the bottom is the starting place of our mental health journey. But in my opinion, what's more important than even the top of the mountain is the foundation. Madeline always understood her problems. She knows that she can be snarky and rude. She's aware that she hurt others and feels horrible about it. Her problem is that she never realized the foundation for her mental health. Gotheline wasn't there to make people feel bad or be rude to others. She was trying to protect Madeline, insulate her from things that might cause her harm in the future. I think this is why the game shows Madeline falling, because she needs to approach her mental health on the foundational level. Understanding what purpose our feelings serve can help us reach greater clarity, as it did for Madeline. By introspecting, Madeline can better understand how she feels. Why am I feeling anxious? What purpose does it serve? How can I use this anxiety to my benefit? These questions are hard to answer and vary from person to person, but sometimes we have to ask the tough questions to find the answers we are looking for. Once these fundamental questions are answered, then scaling the mountain becomes less difficult. The most captivating thing about Celeste is its ability to encapsulate mental health struggles. I've talked about this narratively, but now I want to talk about how gaming as a medium is unique in this way. When a character in a movie cries, we know why and empathize with how they feel, but we don't live those emotions. In video games, this is not the case at all. When we interact with the game world, we have agency to some extent. I can't take Matthew McConaughey to the right spot in Interstellar. He goes there himself. But when I'm Madeline, I'm experiencing her journey as myself. I can imprint onto her character, and by playing the game, I can have a lived experience through gaming. To break this down a little more, Celeste is a very difficult game. It can be frustrating, tedious, saddening, and gratifying. This is where the magic comes in. Take a person who's never had depression. If we sat this person down and told them to pay attention to the gameplay and the narrative, then we asked this person what they think about the game, I'd imagine they would understand on some level the difficulty associated with mental health struggles based on their feelings throughout the game. They might not understand the depressive feelings themselves, but they can see the difficulty associated, which I can't stress enough is so powerful. I felt alienated and isolated when I was depressed. I felt like no one understood my experiences or struggles. They didn't see how much effort it took for me to just get dressed or go to school, which when you're loving yourself aren't hard things to do at all. But when you look in the mirror and you see only Gothline, suddenly doing anything can be excruciatingly difficult. Well, this concludes my breakdown of the game. Celeste is a powerful game for a plethora of reasons. A captivating story, an amazing soundtrack, and a beautiful homage to the mental health struggles we all face. Playing games like this in Senua's makes me optimistic for the future. The amount of empathy and understanding we can cultivate as we play is profound. By better understanding one another and our feelings, we can create a world just like the ending of Celeste. One final thing I want to say. If you feel depressed or anxious, please try and reach out to someone if it's possible. You're not alone. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about this video or the ways Celeste has helped you. I'd love to hear from you. I think it would be awesome if we could cultivate a positive community to have meaningful discussions about mental health. Thanks for sharing a little pie with me. Have a good one.